kung fu.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Gamer Movie Show, and today I have an action classic, and it will be the iconic, by far the best Zack Snyder movie, 2006's 300. 300 is an all-timer. Like, this movie doesn't really need to be talked about. This movie doesn't really need any introduction. When this movie came out in 2006, it was an instant action pop, symbol. It became referenced in many movies, and this movie was referenced in many things, and in many ways too, because The Matrix was big introduction of slow motion. 300 and that style really was a shift for movies in that time, in that early 2000 time period, especially with the bloodiness and the gore of it. It was something that was accepted, and it was like, oh, okay, we can do this. This movie is by far Zack Snyder's most iconic movie. It has the most iconic lines. I mean, we ride in the shade, and this is Sparta alone are two very bad. There is so much. This movie is just a badass movie. It's everything I would describe this movie as every single thing that Zack Snyder has failed to do in every movie after this one. It all works in this movie. The way he shoots his the way he shoots the action, the way he shoots his color palette on how he shoots things, like the way he likes, because like Zack Snyder likes to film his movies and his actors like they're mythical gods, like they're beyond human, normal people. Like, that's the kind of thing. When Zack Snyder's writing his movies, he's writing them like epics, He wants his actors and actresses to almost look like sculptures. He wants them to be people you can make sculptures of, and the way he likes to depict them is that way. It's the same things he used to do with with BVS and Man of Steel, is he likes to depict his actors, he likes to depict his work a certain way. He really likes this idea of the grandness of it in the imagery. He's all about imagery. But the thing that works out for him is that the book that this is based off of, because a lot of people don't know this, but the movie 300 isn't just based off of the historical event that took place in like 400 BC, something like that. The war between the Greece and the Persians, and the Battle of Thermopylae. That's the historical thing that happened that this is based off of. But Zack Snyder's 300 is based off of the iconic. A book written by the iconic comic book writer / just writer in general, Frank Millar. And Frank Millar made this book, came out with 300 in 1998. So it's not the oldest of Frank's books, but it's one of his most memorable and iconic. And the way, if you go back and look at the panels from that comic, it looks visually familiar and visually exactly like the way that Zack Snyder did it. Zack Snyder brought that. 300 isn't just one of the best action movies of all time. It's one of the best comic book adaptations, because Zack Snyder really did. If you go look at the comic, he really brought that comic to life. He took those pages and put it on screen. And, because Frank Miller is a well-known fucking comic book writer. I mean, you're talking about the guy who wrote Daredevil Born Again, Batman Year One, Sin City, The Dark Knight Returns. Like he is Frank Miller has been with DC, Marvel. He's written his own things. He's an icon. He's an icon in the comic book and just the fictional writing world. And 300 is one of his best works. Sin City, which is another movie I could talk about at another time, is another movie that got put on screen. But Zack Snyder did a great job of recreating this. In this movie, like I said, this movie was pretty much where Zack Snyder blew up. This is the movie that blew Zack Snyder up, because before 300, Zack Snyder, he really hadn't done anything. I think he worked on Dawn of the Dead, I think. But I don't know if he worked on Dawn of the Dead before or after Sin City. Either way, Zack Snyder really didn't do anything. I mean, he did things, but this was it. 300 was the movie. This is also the movie that put Gerard Butler on the map. Like, Gerard Butler, after this movie, everyone thought he was gonna be like this big deal because he was so good in this movie. He was so great as Leonidas. He carried himself so well. He had such a presence on screen, especially in the fight sequences. And you know, he had these great speeches. Like, he just spoke and just had so much bass to himself. Like, the movie itself, 300, is a pretty simple plot. And it's historically accurate as well. Well, for the most part, historically accurate. The Persians want to take over everything. They want to take over everything. The Persian Empire, Xerxes, the emperor, the ruler, wants to take over Greece. And at this point in time, Greece is divided. Greece, you got the Spartans, you got people over here, you got people over there. Greece is kind of like divided. But Persia wants to take all of Greece. And like, one of the first people they come to is the Spartans, because the Spartans are basically Super Saiyans. In a weird way, because like they are just bred for battle. I mean, that's all they do is fucking fuck shit up. I mean, that's what the Spartans do, and that's historically accurate, and it's accurate in this movie as well. The Spartans are just they're just to themselves. They're to their ways. They're just hard fucking core. But out of all the Greek nations and whatnot, the Spartans are the most likely ones to try to take over, right? to say the least, to try to do some shit. So of course they approach the Spartans first, and Xerxes, thinking that the Spartans are going to bend the knee, they pretty much insult their queen, they insult all their shit, and it all adds up to one of the most iconic push kicks / just kicks in film history. This is Sparta, kick into the pit, and you never hear him hit the bottom. Like, that moment is iconic. Just Gerard Butler yelling it and kicking that guy is iconic. The slow motion is iconic. Also, this movie is the best use of is one of the best uses of slow motion in any film in the history of Hollywood. Because Zack Snyder, and he never could recapture this with any other fucking movie he does after this, but he used the slow motion to emphasize the veracity and the intensity and the bone crushingness of these Spartan warriors just mowing down these Persians. Because those action sequences, particularly that first one you get in the middle of the fight, where you just see Leonidas go to work and like he speeds up and then goes into the slow motion and then speeds up and like, I mean, I will never forget watching that sequence, that one sequence, and him just macking the fuck out of that guy with his shield, and you just heard the bone crunchingness to it. And the thing about it too is Zack Snyder has a tendency to like want his actors and want to film them a certain way. So having all these Spartans be ripped to shit actually works in the movie's favor, because you believe they could do all this badass shit because of how they look. And like, a look in a lot of action movies is important because you really are like setting up expectations. You got a movie like Nobody with Bob Odenkirk. I always say his last name incorrectly. With old Bob Odenkirk in it, and they play up the fact that he just looks like an average guy, so of course he's taking a beat, and of course he has to do a little bit more. But a movie like this, when the main good guy is such a big, imposing, shredded, just bad-looking motherfucker, and you buy the fight sequences, you buy the action, you buy the things, and then before the fighting even begins, you spend the first 20 minutes of the movie in Sparta, getting to know Sparta, getting an idea of how hardcore there is. This is a place that this is a place that tested their own king as a child by letting him fight fucking a wolf, by making him like survive in the middle of the goddamn woods by himself, fighting off wolves and shit. They are hardcore. So you believe that 300 of them could hold off thousands of Persians. And it's also backed up by the fact that this is based on true events, and it just adds even more to it. Now, that's just, that just adds so much to this movie. It really does. It really does. And this is, like I say, this is Gerard Butler's greatest film. It's the film that made everyone like notice him. It's the film that made people go, maybe Gerard Butler's gonna be something. Now the movie doesn't have its flaws. First of all, the whole, deformed / discarded Spartan whatever being the reason that their downfall is weird. It doesn't really have a good villain in Xerxes. Xerxes' design is weird, but it doesn't really have a good villain at all. Like, if they had took, funny enough, they came out with a sequel, 300 Rise of an Empire. If they had took Homegirl from that movie and made her the villain in this movie, maybe the movie would have been even more better. But in the end, it didn't have that. Outside of Gerard Butler, there's not a lot of character to many of the other actors. There's like plots, but like it's not too much other shit to this movie. But it's not a bad thing because the movie isn't trying to do too much. Except what works about this movie is what needs to work about this movie, which is this movie is the most testosterone-fueled, masculine fucking movie maybe ever created. This movie is like a bodybuilder on steroids hopped up on Red Bull. That's what this movie is. If I had to give it a fucking analogy of the feeling of this movie. It's one of the greatest action movies of all time. It's by far Zach Snyder's best movie. One of the best uses of slow motion in any movie in the history of Hollywood. And it's also one of the greatest comic book adaptations of all time. 300 is a 10 out of 10 movie for me. Love this movie. That's my action classic. Comment below. What did you guys think of 300? Do you remember it? Have you seen it in a while? You should check it out. It's on Netflix. I think they're about to take it off Netflix on December 31st, so you might want to check it out quick before it disappears. But anyways, thank you guys for joining the King Xerxes Movie Show. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Goodbye.